Good evening, friends. We're so happy to be here. This is And Yet We Believe. I'm Ann Pimentel, and this is Roger.
Hello.
We are a married couple having honest conversations about the beautiful, messy middle of Latter-day Saint life. We're really excited to be here tonight, and we're going to have a good conversation.
All right, sounds good. So we are talking about dealing with people who can't handle your nuance. Okay?
Yeah.
And so we are assuming that if you're listening to the podcast that you fall into this bucket of nuanced Latter-day Saints. And as you know, we're big on the stages of faith model. So we really like Brian McLaren's model. It has 4 stages. And here we're talking about stage 3 members, this kind of nuanced group. Brian McLaren calls it the stage perplexity. And this is the stage that people are sitting with doubts and kind of trying to make sense of the world in that way. So what we're talking about really in this episode is how, as a stage 3 person, do you deal with stage 2 and stage 1 people who see the world very differently?
Yeah, and we're going to cover whether that's at church or online in comment sections.
Right.
So, because those are kind of different situations, whether you're talking to someone you know in person or over the internet that you don't know.
For sure. So, just to kind of recap the stages a little bit. So, stage 1, if you recall, is simplicity. And this is the group that is viewing the world in black and white and viewing the gospel in black and white. So, things are right or wrong. Things are good or bad. You're a good guy or a bad guy. And this is the stage that most people start in when they're young, and some people stay in this stage their entire lives, and that's totally fine. Like that's
it works well for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And stage 2, which Brian McLaren calls complexity, is a highly pragmatic stage. And so there's a little more questions, a little more, things aren't quite as black and white in this stage, but there's always this pursuit of answers and finding the way to do things.
Yeah. And it's really big on like finding a mentor or finding somebody that can teach you this thing, or a coach in some way, someone that will give you maybe a new perspective, which is great, but they are another authority that is outside of yourself.
Right. And so, again, and I'll come back to this, and there's a reason why I'm emphasizing this. This is the stage that likes to have an answer to everything. And then stage 3 is a little bit different in ways I already kind of explained. But here's kind of my rule of thumb on stage 2 versus stage 3, and I think why there's sometimes conflict between the two. In stage 2, they're often trying to answer, why does God want things this way? Why did God want there to be polygamy, for example, might be something that a stage 2 person would want to answer.
Right.
And we've all heard those kind of, why did God want black saints to not have the priesthood and temple blessings for over 100 years? And that's where all of these kind of ideas and explanations come from. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So while stage 2 is trying to ask, why did God want it this way? Stage 3 is asking, did God want it that way?
Yeah.
Is that really a true premise to work from? And that's fundamentally different in how you approach these questions. One is trying to find answers, and one is saying, maybe I just need to sit with some discomfort here.
Yeah. Yeah, and that when those two groups interact, you're going to have some problems, right? Because if one group thinks that they have all of the answers to everything, then, the group that wants to just sit and is okay being in that messy middle, they're going to clash, because we don't, I think one of the biggest markers of a stage 3 life is that you have been given answers your whole life and suddenly they don't work out.
Oh, that's
and
so
good. For somebody to just keep shoving these answers down your throat that have stopped working, stopped having meaning for you, then it feels really difficult to interact with people like that.
Yep. And so you may have had this happen. We have had this happen where you're sitting in Sunday school or wherever it is, and you make a comment that's a little more nuanced, or that kind of opens the door to like, hey, there may be more than one way to look at things. And then somebody testifies to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they want to shut it down. They want to bring the spirit back, quote unquote.
Yeah, we had, well, I have several experiences. I don't think we need to share them all, but we had one where the topic was kind of personal revelation. And we think that's a great topic.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said for personal revelation.
President Nelson thought it was a great topic.
He sure did. Really highly recommended by President Nelson. But somebody else felt very strongly that this had to hinge on following the prophet. And they're like, no, but you have to follow the prophet. And we're like, yeah, but also you have personal revelation. They're like, well, I know the prophet is the prophet of God.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay, I get it.
Same.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And so that kind of tends to be what gets weaponized in that back and forth.
Yeah. And then when this shows up online in comments, always there's going to be some person that is like, I am going to set the record straight.
Right.
I know the truth. I am going to defend. And granted, we have been taught in the church that rhetoric of you have to stand up and defend the truth. You
right.
have to stand as a witness of God, and in all times, in all things, and in all places.
Yep.
We take that very literally in our church. And even if it's in relation or a conversation with other members, we really want to make that stamp of approval front and center, and this is what the church teaches, and that has to be right.
Yeah, and we both have our Instagram accounts that we post on, and a lot of the stuff is a bit more nuanced because that's who we are. It's stage 3 type stuff, and there's always a keyboard warrior in the comments who wants to save us.
Yeah,
and I want to be like, dude, we're active in the church.
We're okay.
We're all right here, and even if we weren't, we'd be fine. Always somebody wants to save you. Yeah,
so one of the things that I think is really important to recognize with these people that, are in stage 2, 2 things. I heard a really great analogy recently where it's like we're all standing in a valley.
Okay.
And I'm on the mountain, and this other person is down by a river, and this other person is in a grove of trees, and we're all in the same valley. And if we're going to explain what we're seeing, we're all having very different experiences.
Okay.
We're going to be explaining different things. And so you can apply that to these stages of faith that, some people are experiencing and living one thing, and others are experiencing and living other things. And both things are accurate and true to that person and their experiences. And so I think that that's really helpful to understand. The other thing is when people show up, whether at church or in comments, and they want to defend the faith or, fight about something, I think more often than not, I think that there is a level of fear in them.
Okay.
That they are afraid if the church is being, in their view, attacked,
right,
then that means there's a threat, and that they have to protect something that they love.
They need to wield the sword of truth in that moment.
Right. And so recognizing that they are just trying to care for something that they love, I think that that's really helpful. But also that there is a level of fear involved. It humanizes them just a tad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and an interesting thing that I think contributes to the seeming conflict between these 2 stages is that anybody who's in stage 3 has been in stage 2 and stage 1.
Yeah.
And so it sort of feels like, oh, I'm beyond that. You with your kind of explaining and your answers and whatever, and I've moved past that.
Yeah. I don't need it. It doesn't serve me anymore.
Right. But it served you well when you were in it. And so people that are in stage 1 are living stage 1 lives. People that are in stage 2 are living stage 2 lives. And they have not been where you are if you're in stage 3.
Yeah.
They have not needed that. That has not been something that needs to serve them. And so it's this weird dynamic where you can see the way they're thinking, but they're not going to understand your faith. They're not going to understand your nuance.
Right. Which I wonder, this just occurred to me, I wonder if this is why so many nuanced people claim that people are gaslighting them all the time.
Oh.
Because a stage 1 person or a stage 2 is just kind of giving the company line, you know?
Right.
They're giving the explanations that they've been given their whole lives and that they understand and that ring true to them. But to somebody that is maybe a step away from that, or, you know, has learned something a new way, it feels like gaslighting to them.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. So try this on. I think stage 1 also, but I think stage 2 individuals are centered in the church.
Interesting.
I think the church is built for individuals in that stage. Lesson manuals assume that you're in that bucket. I think most general conference talks are for sure written for stage 1 and stage 2 individuals. I think temple recommend interview questions. In fact, think about the temple recommend interview questions. You know, there's these questions about, do you believe in, Jesus Christ? And do you believe in Joseph Smith? And what are your available answers?
Yes or no.
Yes or no. It's black and white.
Yeah.
It's a stage 1 question. There's only a right answer and a wrong answer, and there's not room for any nuance. There's not an open-ended qualitative question about, tell me about your faith.
Yeah, or what's your relationship with the Savior?
Great question.
Yeah.
But that doesn't work in that kind of institutional way. No, I need you to give me a yes or a no so that I can either sign your recommend or not.
Right. Yeah, that's a cleaner, easier, quicker way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have it be black and white.
And more institutional.
Right.
And so if stage 1 and stage 2 are centered in the church, that means stage 3 is on the outs. It's on the margins. It gets
in the liminal hallway.
It absolutely is. I think stage 3, perplexity, Latter-day Saints with nuance get coded as less faithful, as dangerous, as on the road to apostasy.
Yeah, being deceived.
Right. Overthinking things instead of just following the prophet.
Yeah.
And these sorts of things. Whereas the faith stages model is really clear that being in a different stage is not a factor of more or less faith. It's faith that looks different. And that absolutely tracks with my experience
me too.
with that.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's dive in. What do we do? How do we handle and interact with these people that are in different faith stages than we are?
Well, I think... So I have some practical points here that I want to share.
Okay.
I want to make one more point before we get there, because I think this is really important. Stage 2 assumes that there's a premise of one correct way to do things. There's a correct answer to every question, and there is an answer to every question. And there's a correct way to win the game. There's a correct way to keep the Sabbath day holy. And there's a correct way to read your scriptures. And there's a correct way to pray, and all of these things. And they put a lot of stock into believing the right things. This is where I'm going with this. There's a premise that believing the right things is a key to salvation, and righteousness and these sorts of things. Whereas with where I am in my faith, intellectually assenting to things is much less important than relationship with God, how I treat other people, these sorts of things. But stage 2 is pretty into this idea of, no, you have to believe the right things, and that's really important. Yeah,
and I wonder if that's where prosperity gospel lands as well. If you do these things, then you will be blessed in these ways.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Cause and effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have this great quote from Marcus Borg, who wrote The Heart of Christianity, that I want to share about this. And he says, that Christian faith is about belief is a rather odd notion when you think about it. It suggests that what God really cares about is the beliefs in our heads, as if believing the right things is what God is most looking for, as if having correct beliefs is what will save us. And if you have incorrect beliefs, you may be in trouble. It's remarkable to think that God cares so much about beliefs. Moreover, when you think about it, faith as belief is relatively impotent, relatively powerless. You can believe all the right things and still be in bondage. You can believe all the right things and still be miserable. You can believe all the right things and still be relatively unchanged. Believing a set of claims to be true has very little transforming power.
Yeah. Yeah, that brings to mind the contemplation and action, the need for both of those things.
Right.
Where you can think through things and contemplate on what your beliefs are, where you land, what your relationship is with God. But you also need to act and have works, can we call it? Like
Sure.
That sometimes gets simplified, but there's more to church, to religion, to spirituality, for me at least, than just accepting a belief and I'm done.
And it kind of shines a flashlight again on the Temple Recommend interview questions, where there are kind of standardized belief-based questions, and there aren't questions so much about how are you treating other people.
Yeah. We've got a great quote or a comment here in the comment section that says, I think stage 3 rightly requires you to take your stance and find comfort in distilling it into yes or no answers for Temple Recommend questions and the like. Not to be deceptive, but to be self-authoring while still honoring your full self and God.
That's so good.
I think that's really a really good point to make, that you can still truthfully honor or answer these questions. The way that I think about it is I go to the Temple Recommend interview already having answered and connected with God about these things. Mm-hmm. So I know that I've answered these questions. God knows where I am. They have seen my heart, yep. They know what is going on in my life, and I can go to a bishop or counselor and just answer yes to everything because I already know where I'm at.
Yeah.
And it's just a formality at that point.
Well, and I love the concept from this comment that you kind of have to translate it. Mm-hmm. You have to translate it from stage 3 into stage 1 so that you can answer the question.
Yeah.
Because all you're going to say is yes or no.
Right.
And that questions that you were asking about, tell me about your relationship with God and these sorts of things is really just not part of the program.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk practical.
Okay.
Do you want me to start?
Well, so you have stuff more about interacting with people at church, and I have stuff more for interacting online.
Okay.
So maybe these will coincide really well, but why don't you give me your first thought, and we'll see if I've got a similar one.
Okay. I have 4 points. Okay. And the first one is accepting that stage 1 and stage 2 folks may never validate your way of being faithful. And just having to accept that. And that's on them. Yeah. Because they haven't been in stage 3. They don't know what your faith looks like. They don't understand what it means to hold that faith. And they won't until they get to stage 3 if they do.
Yeah. And we can't control what people think about us.
You're really pushing into my second one here.
Oh, sorry. But you have to be able to let go of the control.
Yes.
Right?
Uh-huh.
You can't worry about what people think, and that is not human nature.
Yeah.
It's not human nature
for sure.
to want to just let people think whatever they want about you.
Yeah, and so I really want to show up at church, and I want people to understand me. And I want them to understand that my faith is looks a lot different than it used to, mm-hmm. but it's also not less, and it's probably a great deal more.
Yeah, deeper, different, more mature faith.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you can't really explain that to somebody. Mm-hmm. And the point that I'm making here is they just may never get it.
Yeah.
And you can have grief for that.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a really difficult thing. I don't want to say that it's easy to accept, but not expecting people to change around me is I think a really important point.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
We'll keep going.
Should I keep going?
Yeah,
okay.
These are different than what I came up with.
Okay. So point number 1 was accepting that they may never validate your way of being faithful. Number 2 is realizing that you are not responsible for changing other people.
Yeah.
And you probably can't change other people.
Yeah.
And so we've talked before on the podcast about how Anne is really good at speaking up in Sunday school, in Relief Society. And when she does, it often makes space for other people who are also in stage 3 or have a nuanced view on the gospel. I'm more of the put my head down and we're just going to get through this lesson. I'm just going to hold on tight and it's going to be over soon. So kind of different ways of dealing with that. But what you can't expect is to raise your hand and argue with somebody in the room and convince them that the stage 3 view is correct. You're not responsible for changing them, and you probably can't.
Yeah, and that's not the place for that sort of debate.
It's terrible for it.
I mean, it's so hard when a comment is made that you wholeheartedly disagree with, and you can maybe give your 2 cents of like, that's an interesting perspective. Here's how I see it. Mm-hmm. You know, this is what I've learned from my experiences in my life. Those are all really good phrases to keep in your back pocket when those hard comments come. But you have to be willing to let it leave, like let it be right there. Yeah. You can't go back and forth.
Yep.
It's not going to be good for anybody.
I agree. So let me do point 3 and point 4, which I think will actually maybe bridge to your focus on like online comments and interactions.
Okay.
So point number 3 here is noticing that not all stage 2 folks are the same. And this I am bad at because I love labeling people and I love judging people and I love thinking they're all idiots and what, you know, like
gosh, the truth comes out.
I'm not proud of it. No. And so there are going to be some of these defenders of the faith. You know, we've had an individual who, if you're making a comment that this person doesn't agree with in Sunday school class, this person will just start talking over you.
Yeah.
And that's one person who's in, you know, a stage 1, stage 2 orientation. Mm-hmm. And there are others that have, you know, cracks of curiosity. Mm-hmm. And that
empathy.
Great point. Great addition to that. And they may be more open to nuanced conversations. Mm-hmm. Some more than others, but just like in any stage, you have an entire spectrum of people. We're kind of lumping them together here into stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, but there's all sorts of different people there. So you don't have to assume that because of that person said that thing at one time, and so I think they're closed-minded and this and that. There is a range of people in each stage.
Yeah. We've learned in our ward and stake that there are a couple of people that we can have these open and honest conversations, and they are very firmly in their camp, and we are pretty firmly in our camp, but we can discuss and we can have understanding between us, and that is built on a relationship of trust, right? This isn't just a first time conversation happening. But I like that you said they have cracks of curiosity. Is that what you called it? Mm-hmm. I think that's really interesting, and maybe at some point there will be something that kind of nudges them further into stage 3.
Yep.
But for now, they like having answers and they want things tied up with a pretty bow, and so they feel comfortable staying in stage 2, and it works well for them.
Yeah, it still serves them, and that tends to be what bridges you from one stage to the next, is when your current stage stops serving you.
Right.
And their current stage is still serving them, and that's great. That is perfect. That is ideal.
Yeah. And I think it's important to mention here that this is where grace comes in. We're all supposed to have grace. It's supposed to go all directions, right? Everybody has grace for everybody else. Often as stage 3 people, it's kind of on us to extend that grace more fully. Yep. And that's unfortunate because that does make us feel like we're being pushed out and nobody is, you know, extending a olive branch to us. But it is just kind of one of the roles that we have to step into to just say, okay, I respect your place in this, and you know, I hope you can respect mine.
Yeah, and I love that you called out kind of roles in the different stages here, because like hospitality across all the stages is not a role that stage 1 and stage 2 play.
Right.
It's kind of not in the DNA of that stage, but it is in stage 3.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to making space for other people, you might feel like stage 1 and stage 2 people are not making space for you, and that it falls entirely on you to make space for them. It sort of does.
Yeah. And it's sort of frustrating. But that's just part of being where we're at, where we can hold nuance.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Point number 4. So just recapping. The first one was that people may not validate your way of being faithful. The second one was you're not responsible for changing them. Number 3 is not all people in these stages are the same. And the last one is find your community.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying that means like don't go to church or whatever, but you know, maybe it's find your community in addition or something like that. It is lonely to be only in spaces where stage 2 is centered. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that means finding other spaces in your life where you are finding people like you. That could be trusted friends in your ward. That could be a book club. That could be podcasts. That could be online. That's where we segue over to a different way of looking at this.
Yeah. And I think, just to stay in that for a second, I think that that's been really helpful for me, because what that means is that I have changed my expectations for what church is.
Oh, interesting.
I don't necessarily go to church looking for friends all the time, because I know that I am not their flavor, right? I'm not the flavor they want most of the time. And I have found my few friends in the ward, but I have found communities in other places that are, we have a shared faith, we have shared understanding of things, but we see things in the same way. And we do speak each other's languages in that way. And so I just have to change that expectation for what church is. And that doesn't mean that I can't be friendly. It doesn't mean that I can't enjoy ward activities or, whatever. I can still be a good societal person that's having, that can be good at parties. But I just don't need to expect the same thing that I used to when I was in stage 1 or stage 2, when all of my friends were in the ward, and I didn't go outside of that.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. So when we're online, it's hard. Being online is really hard, and I'm sure we all know what these conversations are like online. You see the comments where people just start fighting.
Oh, yeah.
And it gets nasty really fast. And they stop talking about the issue and they start attacking each other. And it can be very, very gross.
And this can be comments between two active Latter-day Saints, that have way more in common than they don't, but that doesn't stop it from devolving into what you're describing.
I just saw it between two sisters.
Oh, gosh.
And they are no longer talking to each other. That's really sad. That's a hard place to be in, where, stuff on the internet, in comment section, you can't read body cues, you can't read the tone that they're doing, all of that. And so you just assume things, and it's hard. So I have a few points of what to remember when you're engaging with people online.
Love it.
Let's see. The first thing is deciding what you're there to do. You go to a comment section. What are you there to do? Comment sections are not the place for persuasion, for winning conversations, for having debates about doctrine. It just is not going to work well there.
Right.
And I think the most, as we're deciding what to do as a nuanced member, an important thing to remember is that we have a really good opportunity to model a different tone, to show that we can have discussion, we can have different approaches to things, but we don't get nasty, we don't make it combative. And by doing that, we are signaling to the silent readers, the people that aren't engaging, but that are watching, that there is a way to do this, and that they also are not alone in their thoughts.
Right. Okay, so maybe expound on this a little bit more, because to your first point, the comments are not really a place to have a conversation. People will go back and forth, but that's hardly a conversation. It's hardly something that's going to be productive. So if somebody's getting riled up or is kind of picking a fight in the comments, what does that comment look like where you're diffusing?
Yeah, so I want to just specify or clarify on something you said. You said the comment section is not a good place for a conversation. I think it can be. It's not a good place for winning a conversation. And it's not a good place for persuasion.
Yeah.
If those are parts of your conversation, get out of the comment section. That's not why you should be there.
Yeah.
So today I had a conversation with somebody. It was just a couple back and forth. I had posted something about patriotic hymns, or no, it was the war battle hymns, that we sing at church. And this person was saying, this is just symbolic. Why are you taking it literally? And so I just responded. I was very kind, and I found common ground, and I said, people can see it that way. Here's where I'm coming from. And the person responded and said, "Thank you for your kind response.
Wow.
And here's what I think." And then she ended it by saying, "That's not how I approach it, but I can see that other people do." Okay.
Mind blown.
Right.
Wow.
So this is, in my opinion, this is a stage 2 person that is having a crack of curiosity. Mm-hmm. They were willing to have some discussion. And I answered again, and I was like, "Thank you for your kindness," and I'm curious, here are a couple more questions that I have about this topic. And she hasn't responded yet, and that's fine. But there are ways to have good conversations in the comments. And I actually have a few thoughts about that later of what to look for, of whether to engage or not.
Interesting.
So let's go on. So this is another tip. Find common ground, like I was saying. Find common ground and affirm belonging for them and for you. So they might be afraid that their thought, their myopic point of view maybe, is not going to be welcome at the church. A lot of people think that the church is really progressive, which just makes me die laughing. But they may be afraid of their place of belonging, that they don't belong. And so saying things like, "I'm grateful for the church too," or "I can tell you care deeply about the church or your faith." Those are things that find this common ground, and you're not pushing them away from the get-go.
It's extremely validating.
It is. And if you say, like, your comment is valid and my perspective is different based on this experience that I've had, can I share that with you? There are ways to talk about this in non-combative or aggressive ways.
Yeah, I love that common ground piece. That's a great one.
Yeah. Your words matter. That's the next one. Facts aren't going to impact a person as much as experience or story will. So the way that you talk about things is going to matter. If you come in just blazing, ready to burn it all down, they're going to feel that and they're going to fight back, right?
Yep.
They're going to put a wall up immediately. And I mean, they may not engage, but most people will, and they will fight back hard. And so the way that you come in and the words that you use is really going to matter.
If you have never been baited into an argument online, you are a better person than I am.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The next thing is to use both and language. This models a large container for ideas without threatening their place or abandoning yours. So if you're saying, like, your perspective is accurate for you and mine is for me, that just broadens, like, okay, we can both be here in the same place. We have this large container to hold both of our stories.
I like that.
And then the next one is opt out of fighting and reframe the conversation. You can say, "I'm not here to persuade anyone." Like, often people will say, like, "Show me the facts. Give me the proof of your stats," or, whatever you're saying. And you shouldn't fall into that, right? You should just say, like, "Hey, I'm not here to persuade anyone. I'm just sharing my experiences. I respect that we see things differently," and then just be done.
This also shows up, I think it's in crucial conversations, or maybe fierce conversations. There's a couple of them.
Okay.
And this idea of saying exactly what it is you're doing.
Yeah.
I am not trying to argue. I'm not trying to persuade you.
Yeah.
There's a variety of things I'm not doing, and maybe even saying what you are doing.
Yeah.
I'd love to just share my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, and this is really effective, this has a really diffusing effect of, like, hey, not trying to persuade you. Oh, okay. All right, well, let me hear what you have to say. Yeah,
sometimes that works. And I think it depends on what your previous statements have been and what theirs have been. If you're already escalating and then you say, "I'm not trying to persuade you," it's clear that you were trying to persuade.
Just
right?
Words at that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then an important thing to know is to know when not to engage. If someone is asking questions and seems soft in their language and acknowledges differences, proceed lightly. Like, stick your toe in and just say, like, "Hey, this is really interesting. I see things differently. Would you like to hear my perspective?" or something. Right. You don't need to go in and prove them wrong immediately.
And I think this is personal because I think different people have kind of different thresholds.
Right.
And like I mentioned earlier, Anne is better at engaging, and I tend to draw that line a little closer and be like, not going to engage.
Yeah. If they are making broad sweeping statements or pronouncements, don't engage. You don't owe anyone explanations or the emotional labor that will go into that online conversation.
Yep.
By showing restraint and calmness and kindness, you're showing those who are watching that there's a way to engage without being combative.
Yeah, I like that. Because you already mentioned that about kind of setting the tone and the example for everybody who's not commenting.
And even if they don't believe the same as you, I think showing these good conversation skills is really important because we've kind of lost that as a society.
For sure.
So don't engage when the tone is combative. If their goal appears to be defending boundaries rather than seeking understanding. Don't engage if you feel compelled to justify yourself or your faith or your belonging.
Yep.
Or if the conversation requires more nuance than is going to happen in this online comment section.
Yep.
And then if you do engage, use I statements. Don't speak in absolutes. Don't overgeneralize things. Affirm your shared values before expressing differences, and then just disengage if it takes a turn for the worse. Just be okay being done.
Yep.
And I think it's important that we can release ourselves from these expectations that we need to have the last word. Right. We don't. It's okay for people to have other thoughts. We don't need to educate everyone. Release yourself from that weight that we have to educate and make everyone see what we see.
Yep.
Release yourself from representing all nuanced or questioning members, because you don't. You're not the spokesperson for stage 3 people. And then release yourself from being misunderstood. It's okay if people don't understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. That's really good.
I think that there's... I think it's really interesting that these stages of faith, we may think that it's a progression, but Brian McLaren talks about it being concentric circles. So you build on them, and you always have this stuff from stage 1 inside of you as a stage 3 person. Mm-hmm. And what I have found online, at least, is stage 3 people will often talk to stage 1 believers in a binary, but on the other side.
Right.
So, one person will be saying, you have to do this or you're out. And the other person is like, no, you have to accept me or you're out, Right. And it's this weird binary thinking or way to fight about stuff that we keep in us, like a I'm right, you're wrong sort of thing, but we're just on the other side of the spectrum.
Yep. And in reality, God did not call us to save everyone or to convince them to think the same way we do. He only asked us to love each other and to lift where we stand.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. So I have 3 questions to ask yourself, maybe as we close.
Okay.
3 questions to ask yourself. This could be if you're engaging online or in a Sunday school or, am I going to make a comment or not?
Okay.
Ask yourself these 3 things. Number 1, am I responding out of clarity or reactivity?
Okay.
I think that's really interesting.
I like that.
Number 2, will this bring light and build the beloved community, or is it just heat and hurt? Am I just going to bring heat and hurt for you or for them?
Yep.
If I jump into this conversation, am I going to end up being hurt and struggle with this for the rest of my day? Then I don't want to jump in.
Yep.
And then the last thing, am I trying to be understood or am I trying to be right?
Aha. Yep.
Okay, so we said earlier, it's okay if people misunderstand you, and it is, but if people are trying to clarify things and asking questions and you're wanting to help them understand a little better,
that's different.
Then you can engage. But if it's just that they're pushing back and being kind of obtuse about it, then just let it be.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so hard. It's so very hard.
Yep. Okay, I think that will do it. I mean, this was talking about dealing with people who can't handle your nuance, and it's a shame that it tends to fall back on us to make space for others. I think that's a reality of being in stage 3 versus being in stage 2 or stage 1, where you get to again kind of wield your sword of truth and have answers to everything, and everything feels really good, and you love everybody at church and these sorts of things, and that's just not the reality for a lot of Latter-day
Yeah.
Saints.
Something I've asked myself, and we've actually talked about this before, is, if as a nuanced person, if all I want is to be understood, here we go again, to have space made for me at church, to be accepted regardless of where I'm at, why can't I have that same grace, that same understanding for other people? If I want to be accepted as a stage 3 believer, I need to make space for a stage 1 believer or a stage 2 believer. And I have to release that responsibility of changing their mind like we were talking about, because that's not going to work.
And just because my faith is messier than it used to be, that doesn't mean that, there needs to be room in the church for those whose faith is messy and for those whose faith is neat. And room for those who are doubting and for those who seem certain. And it becomes my responsibility, our responsibility, to make space for other people. Will they make space for us or not? That's up to them, but we can do what we can do.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Good night.